Bonjour, bonjour les amis, bienvenue chez moi, bienvenue chez Vero. Happy New Year first of all. This is the first video I'm recording here in Tours in 2024. I wanted to say a quick hello. I've been a little quiet on social media this week, enjoying some downtime after I returned home from Paris. I want to tell you a little bit about an important time in French life, which is right about now. And officially, that time is marked by a day, which is the Epiphany, a Christian tradition on January 6th, which is today. But the Epiphany is a lot more than that. The Epiphany is also a time when we French people who like our food and our wine like to indulge and eat a very sweet dessert, which we refer to as la Galette des Rois, the king's cake. Now, this is done also in other cultures, other countries as well. In fact, there are many different versions of la Galette des Rois, even in France. So the famous version, the one that you see most often if you go in French boulangeries and patisseries today, and pretty much until the end of January, is la galette frangipane. So this is the version I'm referring to with puff pastry and also a very generous filling. You can see that we call this the frangipane. Frangipane is almond based. It's often flavored, for example, with rum. And this is what une galette des rois would look like. Of course, this is a slice of galette des rois. I'm going to eat it by myself for my goûter today, and I didn't need the actual thing. You can make it yourself very easily. In fact, back in the day when I lived in the United States and my son was growing up, I would make one every year. It's fairly easy to make. And one thing we do with la galette des rois, it's a fun thing to do because inside that cake, we're going to hide a little trinket, a trinket which will enable us to find our king or our queen that day. And that trinket is known as la fève, originally a fava bean, but today more of a porcelain little trinket object. In the original version, it would have been a fava bean, like I said, or maybe a representation of baby Jesus, like this one here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is what it would have looked like. When my son was young and we both loved the Harry Potter series, I did get a collection of Harry Potter themed fèves online in the United States. So you can see here we have Harry Potter. This is Harry on his broom just flying around, probably a Quidditch game. And here we have the famous night bus. But if you pick up your galette at the average boulanger, you can find different types of fèves inside. Maybe a tribute to a favorite soccer or football, as we say here, player. Or an opportunity to show off your knowledge of art. This is Rodin's Le Penseur, the thinker. Or even representations of characters from popular characters from French culture. This little guy here, you probably don't know if you didn't grow up in France in the 60s and 70s. This is Nicolas. His sister was known as Pimprenelle. Their best friend was a big bear called Nounours. And theirs was a popular show on French television in black and white that was meant to help the children go to sleep. It was called Bonne nuit les petits. Good evening, kids. So you can find all sorts of fèves, all sorts of trinkets, and like I said, it's easy to make. But if you don't want to make la galette des rois, just visit any boulangerie, pâtisserie in the next few days and weeks until the end of the month, and you will find one very easily. But if you live in southern France, or if you visit southern France, for example, la galette could be a completely different thing. It could be la couronne des rois. La couronne des rois, the crown, the king's crown, is pretty much a brioche that is going to be filled and decorated with des fruits confits or candied fruit, some coarse sugar on top as well, and flavored very often with orange flower. So different versions in the country itself, and of course different versions of this celebration all around Europe and other countries in the world as well. So it's a fun thing to do. We like it. In fact, it's so popular that even at the Élysée Palace, the Élysée is where President Macron lives and works. Yesterday, he welcomed a day early before the Epiphany, he welcomed representatives of boulanger and pâtissier, and they served a giant galette. I mean, enough for, I don't know how many people were there, 50, 100 probably. And an interesting tidbit about that galette served at the Élysée Palace is that it does not include a fève. And the reason for that is because the fève is who enables us to designate a king or a queen for the day. Whoever gets it in their slice becomes king or queen. Well, as you probably realize, since the French Revolution and after, we have had republics. We don't have kings anymore. And it would be really a major faux pas for the French president to crown himself king in the Élysée Palace. I'm being a little facetious here because a lot of French people do think that once we got rid of the kings, we did replace them with, especially in the Fifth Republic, we live under today with presidents who behave like kings. So if you are invited by the French president to the Élysée Palace, don't look for the trinket, for the fève inside your slice of galette. It won't be there. We don't have a king at the Élysée Palace, just the president. So we do all sorts of things. This is not a good time to go on a diet in France. I know you just came out of the holidays. You've had lots of chocolates, maybe some foie gras, some delicious food and wine. And you're thinking, I'm going to go on a diet. Well, if you just arrived in France, terrible, terrible, terrible timing, friends, because the galette will be around tempting you in all these shop windows until the end of the month. And don't rejoice too soon, because once you've enjoyed the galette through January, right as soon as February starts, we will have another celebration. And I will tell you more about it later maybe. This one is known as La Chandeleur. And that day in February, we will be enjoying des crepes, savory or sweet. So you're not out of trouble yet. If you're watching your weight, France is going to be a terrible, terrible place to be in January and February. You have been warned. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I know what I'm going to have today for my goûter, and I'm sure I will be seeing you again very, very soon. À bientôt, les amis.